So when I was asked to speak on what's new in ACL surgery, I really had to sit thinking, scratching my head to find out what really was new. We started doing ACL reconstructions way back in 1989, and I could really dig out very little changes that have happened over the past 3 decades of ACL reconstruction. But finally, I managed to get a few. Because I felt that ACL surgery is a real simple surgery. You need a graft, you need to make tunnels, and you have to fix the graft. So how can it be made new? So minor changes in the graft, the tunneling or the fixation makes it an entirely new surgery and attracts people to various meetings where it is always said that we are going to show you something new. So when I look back to what's new in ACL, some of these are just to create a sensation and others have been a little bit more sensible. In the past year or two, we all came across this news from Boston, where they published this bare technique of ACL reconstruction, where you had a sponge filled with PRP, which was introduced into the joint, and they started saying that the ACL is going to be regenerated, after which you don't have to reconstruct the ACL at all. Now this was completely unbelievable, and sure enough, these kind of newer so-called innovations or advances really are not picked up into practice. Some of the advances that have been promoted as advances are downright ridiculous, and that includes injections of PRP and stem cells to regenerate the ACL. We had a 20-year-old professional footballer who sustained a contact injury, felt unstable, had immediate swelling. His MRI showed that the ACL was detached from the femoral side. There was a classic bone bruise pattern, but he was advised an injection of PRP because he was looking for an easy solution, a quick solution to return to sports. And sure enough, he underwent this injection of PRP, tried to return to sports, and returned with a medial meniscus bucket. So his recovery then was from, instead of 6 months, went down to much more, and probably went down to 1 year, and maybe his future was also in jeopardy. So what are the few newer things that have made a little bit of sense to me as to newer advances which I may even look at or try to adapt? So some of these were ACL repairs, repairing with internal bracing, revisiting some of the other grafts like the quad tendon, recreating the footprints at the so-called anatomic locations, using soft tissue landmarks so that I minimize the iatrogenic damage during surgery. The all inside ACL, maybe because it was more patient friendly and surgeon demanding, but maybe it was something to look at. And then whether I could have safer fixation methods. Now ACL repairs are not new. We are just revisiting the past. Way back in the early 90s, I had done ACL repairs where the ACL was detached from the femoral side, but this was using a Lanny Johnson staple, which was initially designed for the shoulder for Bankart repairs. But we used them in a couple of patients, and these patients I have been following up, and they have been doing well. But you can do repairs only in very selective cases. You cannot do it randomly. Just because the MRI shows that the ACL is gone from the femoral side does not mean that you can do a repair, because it all depends on the quality of the ACL that is remaining. You want to see that there is not going to be retraction after your repair, and you maintain the length of the ACL after a repair. Otherwise, you are going to land up with a flexion contracture or an extension deficit. So these are the patients where I feel you can do an ACL repair. And the first thing is you need to identify the location or define the tear. So here you can see that the tear is on the femoral side. It is purely a detachment on the femoral side. The substance of the ACL, if you see, is quite healthy. It is not shattered. And in these situations, I drill a tunnel first. I pass a suture, park it in the lateral compartment, pass a cannula so that I don't have to struggle to manage my sutures, use a scorpion to pass a couple of sutures in the substance of the meniscus, one proximal and one distal, and replace these sutures with a tape so that it gives me a broader attachment, and it also makes sure that the sutures don't cut through the substance of the ACL. So a cinch knot is tied. Similar steps on the proximal end. The suture from the femoral tunnel is retrieved, and then the graft is pulled in, the stump is pulled in, and it is fixed on the lateral femoral cortex on an endo button. So these are, I think, the cases where I would think of a repair, but you have to be extremely selective. The next thing is repair with internal bracing. I have absolutely no experience, but this was a video which I saw, and this was, to my thought process, was not acceptable, because you can see here that the ACL was completely shattered. You did what was required technologically, you drilled the tunnel at the right spot, but if you see the substance of the ACL in this situation, there was hardly any substance, and you ended up putting an internal brace inside the stump of the remnant using excessive amount of fixation devices and hoping that this shattered ACL will regenerate or reform and help the patient in the long run. Whenever you do surgery, I think the primary consideration should be whether your surgery is going to last long enough. It should not be a short-term surgical benefit. What about grafts? I think we have started looking at graft augmentation in a big way, because very often in our female patients we find that the semitendinosis is not strong enough. We don't want to stabilize or sacrifice a dynamic stabilizer like the gracilis, and today you have these high tensile tapes which can help in augmentation without any adverse effects. So we have either been using high tensile tape, or we have been augmenting the entire graft by passing sutures, high tensile sutures, to the entire length of the graft and quadrupling it. We have started looking at the central quadriceps tendon as an option, especially again in females, where we feel that the hamstring may not be strong enough, and since it can be done through a minimally invasive technique, I think this is acceptable by your female patients as well. The peroneus longus is to be reserved where you don't have any other option, because it has been shown that harvest of the peroneus can cause significant morbidity. The debate about whether the ACL is a bundle or a ribbon continues. There have been studies where they have shown that it has a rectangular footprint, and Smigleski, who has done tremendous amount of work in this, has started using quadrangular grafts instead of the normal rounded ones. I had the option of speaking to some of his fellows, and they felt that this was an exercise in futility. When we do an ACL, we want to place the graft at the right anatomic footprints, and instead of debriding soft tissue, the soft tissue landmarks, I think it is helpful to use the soft tissue landmarks for identifying your femoral footprint. We have been using this is under publication, various soft tissue landmarks to create our femoral tunnel and the tibial tunnel. With increasing amount of the use of the transportal technique, we find that the femoral tunnels can be very short, and in those situations the adjustable loop is really an excellent tool which helps you to make sure that you have adequate amount of the graft inside the tunnel. Newer implants have been revisited. Some of them include screws with sheaths so that the graft is not damaged. The all inside ACL has attracted a lot of attention. Again, you have to be aware that these techniques involve a lot of instrumentation, a lot of implants, and you need to weigh the cost benefit ratio to the patient and whether it truly results in minimizing pain following the surgery. For us, a compromise, I think, between internal bracing using additional implants is what we call the biologic internal bracing of the knee, and we have been preserving the ACL stump in majority of our patients using flexible reamers so that we don't even have to shave the fat pad or the ligamentum mucosum while doing this, and passing the graft through the stump of the ACL, and this we feel probably is a safer way to go. So you can see the stump on the tibial side also is not debrided. We have made a window in the stump and passed the graft through the stump. The fat pad, as you can see, is well preserved, and this is very important not just for the vascularity but also for the smooth gliding of the joint. And this is the ACL which can be augmented as well if you are not happy with the graft. So whenever we are going to adapt to these newer technologies, I think you need to look at a couple of points. Is this path breaking, or is it old wine in a new bottle? Has it made a significant change in the way we look at things? Does it marginally or significantly change the outcomes of the surgery? Are we working for industry or are we working for the patient? A very critical question in today's times where industry is really pushing at us. And does it dramatically increase the cost of the procedure, and is the cost benefit ratio justifiable? Thank you very much.